The warning sirens fell silent across Geneva as the massive alien vessels settled into stable orbit above Earth. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the observation window of the United Earth Government headquarters, watching the ships gleam against the darkness of space. They were beautiful in a way that took her breath away. Smooth curves of silver and blue metal, nothing like the angular warships humanity had imagined in countless stories and simulations. "They're really here," whispered Dr. James Park, standing beside her. The astrophysicist had spent 30 years searching for signs of alien life. Now that life had found them instead, Sarah nodded slowly. Her hands were steady, though her heart raced. Everything she had trained for, every diplomatic simulation and first contact protocol came down to this moment. Behind her, the command center buzzed with controlled chaos. Linguists worked frantically to decode the alien transmissions while military advisors argued in hushed tones about defensive positions. The alien message had been clear enough once their computers had cracked the mathematical language. The Zeltharan Confederation came in peace. They offered friendship, technology, and a place among the stars for humanity. It seemed too good to be true. Admiral Catherine Stone thought exactly that. The silver-haired military commander stood with arms crossed, her jaw tight as she studied the formation of alien ships on the tactical display. 12 vessels in perfect geometric arrangement. Beautiful, yes, but also strategic. They had positioned themselves to cover every major population center on Earth. "I don't like it," Stone said quietly to her aide. "Nobody travels between stars to shake hands and share recipes." The message seemed genuine, the aide offered. Stone's eyes narrowed. "That's what worries me most." 3 days later, Sarah Chen prepared to board a shuttle that would carry her to the Zeltharan flagship. She wore the formal diplomatic uniform of the United Earth Government, deep blue with silver trim. A small pin over her heart displayed Earth as seen from space, a reminder of what she represented. "Remember the protocols," Admiral Stone said as they walked to the launch bay. "Smile, be friendly, but commit to nothing. We need time to understand what they really want." "I understand," Sarah replied. She did understand, but she also felt the weight of humanity's hope pressing down on her shoulders. Millions of people watched around the world, celebrating what they saw as mankind's graduation into a larger cosmic community. How could she balance their dreams with Stone's cold military caution? The Zeltharan flagship was called the Luminous Dawn. Sarah's shuttle docked smoothly with the alien vessel, guided by technology that made Earth's best computers look like stone tools. As the airlock opened, she took a deep breath and stepped through. Archon Velis waited on the other side. The Zeltharan leader stood nearly 7 feet tall, his skin a pale blue-gray that seemed to shimmer under the ship's lighting. His eyes were large and dark, showing what appeared to be genuine warmth. He wore robes of deep purple that flowed around him like water. "Ambassador Chen," he said in perfect English, his voice melodious and kind. "Welcome aboard. We have waited so long to meet your species." Sarah smiled and extended her hand in the traditional human greeting. Velis grasped it gently, his 3-fingered hand surprisingly warm. "Thank you for your welcome, Archon. Humanity is honored by your visit." The tour of the ship left Sarah amazed. The Zeltharans showed her medical bays that could cure diseases Earth still struggled with. Engineering sections where matter itself seemed to bend to their will. Gardens growing under artificial suns filled with plants from a dozen worlds. Everything spoke of an ancient, peaceful civilization that had mastered the challenges humanity still faced. "We have much to offer each other," Velis said, as they sat in his private quarters, sharing a meal of carefully prepared Earth and Zeltharan foods. "Your species is young but shows remarkable potential. With our guidance, you could join the Confederation as full members within a generation." "That's very generous," Sarah said carefully, "but we would need to understand what membership entails. What responsibilities come with the benefits?" Velis smiled, showing flat teeth. "Nothing unreasonable. Members contribute resources to the common good. They participate in Confederation decisions. They open their worlds to trade and cultural exchange. Simple things that benefit everyone." It sounded perfect. Too perfect. Sarah thought of Admiral Stone's warning and chose her words carefully. "We would need time to discuss this with our governments. This is not a decision one person can make." Of course, Velis agreed readily. "We understand. Take all the time you need. We have waited centuries to find you. A few more weeks or months means nothing." Far beyond the orbit of Neptune, the Terran warship Retribution hung in the darkness. No light escaped her hull. No heat signature betrayed her presence. The most advanced cloaking technology humanity could devise kept her hidden from every sensor the Zeltharans possessed. Captain Marcus Webb sat in the command chair, watching the feeds from the alien flagship. Audio transmissions, encrypted data streams, everything the Retribution's powerful systems could intercept. His crew worked in near silence, monitoring, recording, analyzing. "Sir, we're picking up another encrypted burst from the flagship," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from the communication station. "Same pattern as before. It's not directed at Earth. Keep recording," Webb ordered. "Let the AI work on the encryption. I want to know what they're saying when they think nobody is listening." Webb was 45 years old and had spent 20 of those years in deep space. He knew the darkness between stars better than any city on Earth. He also knew that nothing in that darkness came free. The Zeltharans offered too much and asked too little. That mathematics didn't balance. "Captain," his executive officer, Commander Sarah Mills, said quietly, stepping close to his chair. "Do you really think they're hostile?" Webb considered the question. On the screens, Archon Velis laughed at something Ambassador Chen had said. The alien leader looked friendly and genuine. "I think," Webb said slowly, "that anyone who travels between stars has seen enough of the universe to know it's not kind. These aliens have mastered technology we're still dreaming about. They don't need Earth for anything simple. So why are they really here?" "Maybe they're just lonely," Mills suggested. "Maybe," Webb agreed. "But we're going to stay right here in the dark until we know for sure. This is humanity's first contact with aliens. It might also be our last chance to survive it." Back on Earth, celebrations continued. The Zeltharans visited major cities, always gracious and friendly. They shared music and art. They told stories of other worlds and other species in the Confederation. They seemed genuinely delighted by human culture and creativity. Children drew pictures of the beautiful alien ships, and teachers explained how this moment would change history forever. Admiral Stone watched it all with growing unease. Her analysts reported the same thing over and over. The Zeltharans said all the right things. They made all the right gestures. Nothing in their behavior suggested hostile intent. But still, something felt wrong to her experienced instincts. She authorized the deployment of 3 more cloaked warships to join the Retribution. They took positions throughout the solar system, silent guardians watching and waiting. Stone didn't tell the civilian government about this deployment. Some decisions, she believed, should be made by those who understood that peace sometimes required preparation for war. In orbit above Earth, Archon Velis retired to his private chambers after another successful day of diplomacy. He removed his formal robes and settled into a meditation pod. A small smile crossed his face as he composed his report to the Confederation High Command. Everything proceeded according to plan. The humans were trusting and eager. Their military was visible and trackable. Within weeks, they would accept the initial treaty. Within months, Earth would belong to the Confederation. It had worked the same way 14 times before on 14 different worlds. It would work again. Velis felt no guilt about the deception. The strong guided the weak. That was simply the nature of the universe. Soon, these humans would understand their place in the cosmic order. He encrypted the message and sent it into the darkness, never imagining that in that same darkness, human eyes watched and human computers worked to break every secret the Zeltharans tried to hide. 3 weeks passed in a blur of diplomatic meetings and cultural exchanges. The Zeltharans seemed endlessly patient and genuinely interested in everything about humanity. They toured museums and attended concerts. They sampled foods from every continent and praised human creativity. Archon Velis personally spent hours in discussion with philosophers, artists, and scientists. To the watching world, the aliens appeared to be exactly what they claimed: peaceful explorers seeking friendship. Ambassador Sarah Chen found herself caught between wonder and duty. Every interaction with the Zeltharans revealed new marvels. They described worlds of crystal cities and oceans that sang. They spoke of technologies that could end hunger and disease across Earth. They painted pictures of humanity's future among the stars that were beautiful beyond imagination. Yet Admiral Stone's warnings echoed in her mind during quiet moments. Trust but verify, hope but prepare. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning, Earth Standard Time. Junior Communications Officer David Torres sat in his small station aboard the Retribution. doing what he had done every day for 3 weeks. He watched patterns in the encrypted Zelteron transmissions, feeding data to the ship's artificial intelligence, looking for any weakness in their communication security. "Got something," he said suddenly, sitting up straight. His voice carried enough urgency that Captain Webb immediately turned from his conversation with Commander Mills. "What is it, Torres?" Webb asked, moving to stand behind the young officer's station. Torres pointed to his screen where lines of alien code scrolled past. "The AI cracked about 12% of their encryption, sir. It's not much, but look at these words." He highlighted several terms that the computer had translated: strategic value, resource extraction, timeline for integration, military assets. Webb felt his stomach tighten. "Keep working on it. I want every word you can give me. Mills, get the other shadow ships on secure channel. Tell them to increase monitoring intensity." "Yes, sir," Mills replied, already moving to her station. Over the next 48 hours, more fragments emerged from the encrypted messages. The Retribution's AI pieced together partial sentences and phrases like a deadly puzzle. Assessment of defensive capabilities. Mineral deposits exceed projections. Population suitable for labor integration. Resistance expected minimal. Commander Mills brought the compiled report to Webb in his ready room. The captain read it 3 times, his expression growing darker with each reading. Finally, he looked up at his executive officer. "They're not here to make friends. They're here to conquer us." "The evidence isn't complete, sir," Mills said carefully. "We've only translated fragments." "Read between the lines, Commander," Webb said, tapping the data pad. "Why would peaceful explorers need an assessment of our defensive capabilities? Why discuss resistance levels? Why reference labor integration?" He stood and paced the small room. "They've done this before. I'd bet my ship on it. What do we do?" Mills asked. Webb considered carefully. The cloaked warships represented humanity's best military technology. They were powerful but untested in real combat. The Zeltheran fleet had 12 capital ships and likely possessed weapons humanity had never imagined. If he revealed what they knew too early, the Zeltharans might attack before Earth could prepare. If he waited too long, they might spring their trap with humanity's defenses down. "We send everything we have to Admiral Stone," Webb decided. "She needs to know what we found. The decision about what to do with it belongs to people above our pay grade." The encrypted message reached Earth 12 hours later. Admiral Stone read it in her office, alone except for her most trusted aide. When she finished, she sat in silence for several long minutes, staring at nothing. "Get me a secure line to Ambassador Chen," she finally said. "She needs to see this." Sarah Chen received the message while preparing for another dinner with Archon Velis. Reading the intercepted fragments felt like falling into cold water. All the warmth and friendship she had felt over the past weeks turned hollow. She thought of Velis's kind eyes and gracious manner. Had it all been a performance? She wanted to believe there was some mistake, some misunderstanding. But the words on the screen were clear enough even in fragments. She met with Admiral Stone in a secure bunker beneath the UN headquarters. The Admiral looked as tired as Sarah felt. "We can't know for certain from partial translations," Sarah said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Maybe we're misinterpreting their intent." Stone pulled up additional analysis on the holographic display. "Our linguist cross-checked everything against the Zeltheran language database they provided us. The translations are accurate. These aren't messages about peaceful cooperation. Their intelligence reports planning an invasion." "Have we confronted them?" Sarah asked. "Not yet," Stone replied. "If we show our hand too early, they might attack immediately. We need more time to prepare Earth's defenses and more intelligence about their true capabilities. So what do we do? Keep smiling and pretending we don't know?" "Exactly that," Stone said firmly. "And I need you to be convincing. You're our eyes and ears with Velis. Keep him confident that we're naive and trusting. Meanwhile, I'm moving every military asset we have into position." Sarah felt sick. She had entered diplomacy to build bridges, not to participate in elaborate deceptions. But she thought of Earth's billions of people, celebrating what they believed was a new era of peace. If the Zeltherans were truly planning conquest, someone had to protect humanity's future. "I'll do it," she agreed quietly. The next week tested Sarah's acting abilities to their limit. She met with Velis, shared meals, discussed cultural exchanges, all while knowing that he was likely planning Earth's subjugation. The alien leader seemed to notice nothing wrong. He remained charming and enthusiastic, making plans for humanity's integration into the Confederation. "We're proposing a celebration," Velis announced during one meeting. "A ceremony in orbit to commemorate the formal alliance between Earth and the Confederation. Your entire defense fleet could participate. A show of unity visible to both our peoples." Sarah's blood ran cold, but she kept her smile in place. "That sounds wonderful. What kind of ceremony did you have in mind?" "Something symbolic," Velis explained, gesturing at a holographic display that showed ships arranged in an elaborate pattern. "Our vessels and yours intermingled in a formation representing cooperation and mutual trust. We could broadcast it across Earth and to the Confederation worlds. A historic moment." Sarah looked at the formation Velis proposed. She didn't have military training, but even she could see how the arrangement would position Zeltharan ships to surround Earth's fleet. It was a trap. A beautiful ceremonial trap. "I'll need to discuss this with the military command," she said carefully. "But personally, I think it's a beautiful idea." "Excellent," Velis said warmly. "I'm so pleased humanity has proven to be as wise and peaceful as we hoped." That evening, Sarah transmitted every detail to Admiral Stone. The Admiral studied the proposed formation with cold eyes. "It's exactly what I expected. They want our entire visible fleet in one place, surrounded and vulnerable. We can refuse," Sarah suggested. "No," Stone said thoughtfully. "If we refuse, they'll know we suspect something. Better to let them think their plan is working." She smiled grimly. "They want to surround our fleet? Fine, but they don't know about our shadow ships. Captain Webb and the others have been silent and invisible for weeks. The Zeltharans don't know they exist." "You're going to spring a counter-trap," Sarah realized. "Exactly," Stone confirmed. "The Zeltharans think they're the hunters. Time to show them they've been the prey all along." Aboard the Retribution, Captain Webb received his orders with a mixture of relief and dread. Relief that Earth's leadership wasn't blind to the danger. Dread at what was coming. His crew had trained for combat, but training and reality were vastly different things. They would soon face an enemy with superior technology and centuries of experience. Humanity's only advantages were surprise and the fact that the Zeltharans didn't know about the cloaked warships. "All hands. This is the captain," Webb announced over the ship's intercom. "We've received confirmation that the Zeltharans are hostile. In approximately 72 hours, they plan to trap Earth's defense fleet during what they're calling a celebration ceremony. Our orders are to maintain cloak and hold position until they commit to their attack. Then we decloak and engage." He paused, letting that sink in. "We're going to be outnumbered. They likely have better weapons, but they won't expect us, and that advantage might be all we need. Get some rest. Check your systems. In 3 days, we're going to war." Throughout the solar system, 11 other cloaked warships received similar messages. Captains briefed their crews. Engineers checked weapons systems. Pilots ran combat simulations. Humanity prepared for a battle that would determine whether Earth remained free or became the 15th conquest of the Zeltharan Confederation. On the Zeltharan flagship, Archon Velis reviewed the final plans for what he thought of as the integration event. Everything was perfect. The humans had agreed to the ceremony. Their military leaders seemed eager to display their ships in the proposed formation. Within hours of the ceremony beginning, it would all be over. The day of the celebration ceremony dawned bright and clear over Geneva. Millions of people around the world prepared to watch what they believed would be humanity's greatest moment. Schools declared holidays. Cities organized viewing parties in public squares. The news media filled every channel with excited commentary about Earth's entry into the galactic community. Nobody knew they were watching the setup for an invasion. Ambassador Sarah Chen dressed in her formal uniform for what might be the last time. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. 3 weeks of deception had carved lines around her eyes that weren't there before. She had smiled and laughed with Archon Velis while knowing he planned to enslave her species. The weight of that knowledge had changed something fundamental inside her. "Almost time," Admiral Stone said, entering the dressing room without knocking. The military commander wore her full dress uniform, medals gleaming on her chest. "The fleet is moving into position. How many ships are we sending?" Sarah asked. "Every capital ship we can spare," Stone replied. 62 vessels. It's most of our visible defense fleet. Enough to look impressive, but not enough to actually stop the Zeltharans if they attack. And the cloaked ships?" Stone's expression hardened. 12 warships are in position around the ceremony site. Another 8 are scattered throughout the system as reserve. The Zeltharans don't know they exist. That's our ace in the hole, Sarah nodded slowly. What do you need me to do? Be on that flagship with Velis when everything happens, Stone said. I need eyes and ears right next to him. Can you do that? The thought of being aboard the enemy flagship when battle started terrified Sarah. But she had come too far to back out now. I can do it. Good, Stone said. And Ambassador? When this is over, one way or another you'll have earned every bit of respect humanity can give you. 3 hours later, Sarah stood on the observation deck of the luminous dawn, watching Earth's defense fleet move into the ceremony formation. Archon Velis stood beside her, practically glowing with satisfaction. Magnificent, he said, gesturing at the arrangement of ships. Your vessels are quite impressive for such a young species. Primitive by Confederation standards, of course, but impressive nonetheless. Sarah bit back a sharp response. We're honored to participate in this moment. It means everything to my people. As it should, Velis agreed. Today marks the beginning of a new era for humanity. An era of growth and enlightenment under Confederation guidance. The words sounded friendly, but Sarah heard the threat beneath them now. Under Confederation guidance meant under Confederation control. She watched the formation take shape and felt her heart hammering. Somewhere out in that darkness, Captain Webb and the other shadow ship commanders waited. Everything depended on their timing. The ceremony began with speeches broadcast across Earth and to Confederation worlds. Velis spoke eloquently about cooperation and mutual benefit. Earth's Secretary General responded with words about humanity's dream of joining the cosmic community. It was all theater now, a performance for an audience that didn't know the real script. And now, Velis announced, to symbolize our unity, the Confederation fleet will move to embrace our new allies in formation. Sarah watched the Zeltharan ships shift position. They moved with perfect coordination, forming a sphere around Earth's fleet. Beautiful and deadly, she saw the exact moment when Earth's vessels were completely surrounded. The trap was closed. Velis's warm expression vanished like someone had flipped a switch. His large dark eyes went cold and calculating. He touched a control on his wrist and suddenly weapons ports opened across every Zeltharan ship. The ceremonial lighting dimmed, replaced by the red glow of weapons charging. Alert all Earth vessels, Velis said calmly to his bridge crew. His voice broadcast to every human ship. You are now property of the Zeltharan Confederation. Power down your weapons and engines immediately. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. You have 60 seconds to comply. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face even though she had known this was coming. Hearing it spoken so coldly, seeing the mask drop away completely made it horrifyingly real. Velis turned to her with an expression that might have been pity. I apologize for the deception, Ambassador. But surely you understand. Your species is not ready to join the Confederation as equals. You require guidance, structure, purpose. We will provide all of that. You're going to enslave us, Sarah said quietly. Such an ugly word, Velis replied. We prefer integration. Your people will work for the common good of the Confederation. In time, you'll come to see this as a blessing. 14 other species have learned to appreciate their place in our civilization. 14 others, Sarah repeated, thinking of the intelligence reports. How many of them started with a ceremony like this? Velis smiled thinly. All of them. It's a template that works remarkably well. Species that discover space travel develop certain predictable traits. Curiosity, hope, a desperate desire not to be alone in the universe. These traits make them wonderfully easy to manipulate. On Earth's defense ships, alarms screamed. Captains shouted orders and crew scrambled to battle stations, but they were surrounded and outgunned. Admiral Stone watched from her command center in Geneva, her face carved from stone. She touched her communication console. All shadow units, she said quietly. Execute Protocol Omega. Repeat, execute Protocol Omega. Her words traveled through encrypted channels to 12 cloaked warships scattered around the ceremony site. Captain Marcus Webb heard them aboard the Retribution and felt a cold calm settle over him. This was it, the moment that would determine humanity's future. All hands to battle stations, he ordered. Weapons, charge all systems. Helm, prepare to decloak on my mark. Communications, open a channel to the Zeltharan flagship. His crew moved with practiced efficiency, fear and adrenaline sharpening their actions. Webb watched his tactical display where the Zeltharan ships formed a perfect sphere around Earth's trapped fleet. They were so confident, so certain of victory. That was about to change. Weapons charged. "Sir," his tactical officer reported. "Channel open to Zeltharan flagship. Communications confirmed." Webb stood from his command chair and straightened his uniform. This moment would be remembered forever, one way or another. He nodded to his helm officer. "Decloak. All shadow units decloak now." Across the battle space, reality seemed to ripple and tear. 12 massive warships appeared from nothing, materializing directly behind the Zeltharan formation. They were dark and angular, built for war rather than elegance. Their weapons were already glowing hot, already locked on targets. The effect on the Zeltharan fleet was electric. Alarms shrieked. Sensors suddenly detected ships that couldn't possibly be there. Formation commanders shouted in confusion and growing panic. Their perfect trap had just become a cage with predators inside it. On the luminous Dawn's bridge, Archon Velis stared at the tactical display in shock. "That's impossible," he whispered. "We've been monitoring this system for weeks. There's nothing out there, nothing." "Allow me to correct that assumption." Captain Webb's voice came through on every Zeltharan ship's communication system. His words were calm, almost conversational, but carried an edge of steel. "This is Captain Marcus Webb of the Terran Warship Retribution. You were given peace. You chose deception. You threatened our world and our people. That was a mistake." Velis found his voice. "You cannot prevail. We have superior technology and centuries of combat experience. Stand down immediately or face destruction." Webb's response came without hesitation. "Weapons, light them up." The Retribution's railguns opened fire first, hurling metal slugs at a significant percentage of light speed. The physics were simple but devastating. The Zeltharan shields were designed to deflect energy weapons, but kinetic impactors were a different problem entirely. The slugs punched through shields like they weren't there and tore into ship hulls with catastrophic effect. 3 Zeltharan cruisers took direct hits in the opening salvo. Armor crumpled. Internal explosions blossomed. One ship broke in half, its atmosphere venting into space. The second spun out of control, systems dead. The third managed to maintain power but limped away, trailing debris. The other human shadow ships opened fire simultaneously. Missiles streaked across space, moving too fast for point defense systems to track effectively. More Zeltharan vessels took damage. Their perfect formation collapsed into chaos as ships broke away to avoid fire or attempt return attacks. Sarah Chen watched from the observation deck in stunned silence. The battle unfolded with terrible beauty, like a deadly dance performed at impossible speed. She had known Earth had hidden warships, but seeing them in action was something else entirely. They moved with purpose and precision, each shot calculated for maximum effect. "Impossible," Velis kept repeating, watching his fleet take losses. "This is impossible. They're primitives. They shouldn't have this technology." "Primitives who planned for your treachery," Sarah said quietly. "Did you really think we'd greet unknown aliens without preparing for the worst? Humanity learned a long time ago that hope is good, but insurance is better." Velis rounded on her, his friendly mask completely gone now. "You knew. You knew all along and you said nothing." The Retribution's targeting systems locked onto the luminous Dawn with mechanical precision. Captain Webb felt no satisfaction in what came next, only the cold necessity of it. The flagship represented more than just another target. It was the symbol of Zeltharan arrogance, the ship that had hosted humanity's representatives while planning their enslavement. It needed to be humbled, not destroyed, but definitely humbled. "Fire warning shots," Webb ordered. "Put 3 rounds across their bow, close enough that they feel the heat." 3 railgun slugs streaked past the luminous Dawn's bridge, close enough that their passage shook the massive vessel. Alarms blared. Structural stress warnings lit up across the engineering stations. One shot came within 20 meters of the observation deck where Sarah Chen and Archon Velis stood. Velis stumbled backward, his confident demeanor cracking completely. Through the transparent hull he had seen the slug pass, a dark streak of metal moving faster than thought. If that had hit them directly, they would have died before their brains could process the impact. "Next salvo targets your engines," Webb's voice announced across the communication channel. "Stand down now or we will cripple your flagship and leave you drifting." Sarah watched Velis struggle with the decision. She could see the calculations running behind his eyes. Pride warred with survival instinct. The Zeltharan Confederation had never retreated before. They were the predators, the conquerors, the ones who dictated terms. But the battle was clearly going against them. 6 of their 12 capital ships were damaged or destroyed. The human warships showed no signs of slowing their assault. Around the battle space, the surviving Zeltharan vessels attempted to regroup. They were professional military, trained for combat scenarios, but nothing in their experience had prepared them for an enemy that had seemed so primitive, yet fought with such devastating efficiency. Their formations kept collapsing as human ships appeared from unexpected angles, firing and then moving before return fire could be coordinated. Commander Sarah Mills aboard the Retribution monitored the tactical situation from her station. "Sir, the Zeltharans are attempting to reform near their flagship. Looks like they might be preparing a counterattack." Webb nodded. "Expected. Helm, bring us around. Put us between them and Earth's defense fleet. Weapons, continue firing at opportunity. Communications open channel to all Earth vessels. Channel open, sir. All Earth defense ships, this is Captain Webb. Begin systematic withdrawal from the combat zone. Move back toward Earth orbit at best speed. Shadow units will provide cover." Earth's trapped fleet needed no encouragement. Captains who had thought they were about to die suddenly had a chance to escape. Ships broke formation and accelerated toward the relative safety of Earth's orbital space, their crews cheering even as they ran. The withdrawal wasn't without cost. 2 Earth cruisers took glancing hits from Zeltharan plasma weapons as they fled. One lost main power and had to be towed by sister ships. The other made it under its own power but with severe damage to its hull. Still, considering they had been surrounded and outgunned, the losses were remarkably light. Velis watched the human fleet escape and felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: genuine fear. The Confederation had conquered 14 species. Every one of those conquests had followed the same pattern. Superior technology and tactics overwhelmed primitive defenses. Resistance collapsed quickly. Integration proceeded smoothly. It was a proven system, except it was failing here. Badly. "Archon," his fleet commander said urgently from the bridge below. "We need to withdraw. We've lost 6 ships and the others are taking damage. These humans have weapons we can't effectively counter." "Withdraw?" Velis repeated the word as if it were foreign. "We don't withdraw. The Confederation doesn't retreat from primitives. With respect, Archon, these primitives just destroyed half our fleet." The commander's voice carried an edge of panic. Whatever intelligence we had about their military capabilities was completely wrong. "They have technology we didn't know existed." Sarah Chen spoke up from behind Velis. "Not technology, strategy. You assumed we were naive because we were younger. You assumed we'd trust you because we wanted friends. You assumed we'd never imagine our first contact might be hostile. Every assumption was wrong." Velis turned to her and Sarah saw real hatred in his eyes for the first time. "You'll pay for this deception. The full might of the Confederation will come here and crush your species." "Maybe," Sarah agreed calmly. "Or maybe they'll hear what happened here and decide Earth isn't worth the cost. How many ships is the Confederation willing to lose? How many of your other subject species might rebel if they learn you can be defeated?" The words hit Velis like physical blows. He hadn't considered the political implications. The Confederation's power rested on an image of invincibility. If word spread that primitives from a backwater world had destroyed half a Zeltharan fleet, it could inspire resistance across a dozen systems. The subject species might start believing they could fight back. On the Retribution, Webb watched the Zeltharan fleet's formation continue to deteriorate. They were combat experienced, but they were also used to fighting from a position of overwhelming superiority. This kind of desperate defensive battle wasn't in their standard playbook. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Zeltharan flagship," the communications officer reported. "It's directed specifically to you." "Put it through," Webb ordered. Archon Velis's face appeared on the view screen. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. The mask of friendly diplomat was gone. So was the cold certainty of a conqueror. What remained was a military commander facing an unexpectedly competent enemy and reassessing his options. "Captain Webb," Velis said, his voice stiff, "you have made your point. Your species is more capable than our intelligence suggested. Perhaps we can negotiate a peaceful resolution to this situation." Webb almost laughed. "Now you want to negotiate? After you surrounded our fleet and demanded surrender? After you revealed you've done this to 14 other species? What exactly would we be negotiating?" Terms of coexistence, Vela said carefully. The Confederation could recognize Earth's sovereignty. We could establish trade relations, exchange ambassadors, avoid further bloodshed. Let me offer you different terms, Webb replied. You withdraw immediately. All Zeltharan ships leave this system within the next 6 hours. You return to your Confederation and tell them exactly what happened here. Tell them that humanity will respond to friendship with friendship, but we will respond to threats with overwhelming force. Tell them we're not prey. Velas's expression hardened. You cannot expect us to simply leave after this humiliation. The Confederation has its pride. Pride is expensive, Webb said flatly. How much more are you willing to pay for it? I have 8 more warships in reserve that you don't see. My weapon systems have barely been tested. We can continue this battle until your entire fleet is debris, or you can retreat with the ships you have left. Your choice, Archon. Choose quickly. The bluff was audacious. Webb did have reserve ships, but his ammunition wasn't infinite. A prolonged battle would eventually drain his resources. But the Zeltharans didn't know that. They couldn't know how close to his limits Webb actually was. All they knew was that their intelligence had been completely wrong about human capabilities. For all they knew, Earth had 100 more ships hidden in the darkness. Velas looked at the tactical display showing his damaged fleet. 6 ships destroyed or crippled, the others taking steady damage. Earth's defense fleet escaping while human shadow ships covered their retreat. The mathematics of the situation were clear enough. Continued fighting would be expensive in ships and lives. Retreat would be humiliating but survivable. He made the decision that military commanders throughout history have had to make when faced with unexpected circumstances. Survival trumped pride. We will withdraw, Velas said, each word clearly painful. But this isn't over, Captain Webb. The Confederation has a long memory. So does humanity, Webb replied. We'll remember that you came in peace and planned war. We'll remember that you tried to conquer us. And we'll be ready if you ever try to return. Now get your ships and leave our system. The channel closed. Velas stood on his bridge, surrounded by concerned officers and damaged systems, and felt the weight of failure settling on his shoulders. He had been so certain. The pattern had worked 14 times before. It should have worked here. But something about these humans was different. They had hoped for friends but prepared for enemies. They had smiled while sharpening their knives. They had played the game better than he had. Signal the fleet, he ordered quietly. All ships withdraw to the edge of the system. We'll regroup there and then make the jump to Confederation space. The Zeltharan ships began moving, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. They kept their weapons powered and their shields up, wary of pursuit. But the human warships held position, allowing them to leave. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about defense. The message had been delivered clearly enough. Sarah Chen watched the alien fleet retreat and felt the tension that had gripped her for weeks finally begin to ease. She turned to find Velas standing alone near the observation window, staring out at his damaged fleet with an unreadable expression. The Zeltharan fleet limped away from Earth's solar system like wounded animals retreating from an unexpected predator. 6 ships were left behind, their crews evacuated to surviving vessels before the damaged hulls were set adrift. Archon Velas watched the debris field through the observation window of the luminous dawn, and felt the bitter taste of failure. In 200 years of service to the Confederation, he had never retreated from a conquest. The shame of it would follow him forever. His communication officer approached hesitantly. Archon were receiving urgent messages from Confederation High Command. They want a full report on what happened. I imagine they do, Velas said quietly. He had sent preliminary reports during the battle, enough for the High Command to know that something had gone catastrophically wrong. Now he would have to explain in detail how primitive humans had defeated a Confederation fleet. The humiliation would be complete. Shall I tell them you'll report after we complete the jump? The officer asked. No, Velas decided. Open a channel now. They deserve to hear this directly. The channel opened to reveal 3 members of the High Command, their expressions already severe. They listened in growing disbelief as Velas explained the events, the concealed human warships, the devastating kinetic weapons, the tactical sophistication that shouldn't have existed in such a young species. When he finished, silence stretched across the channel. Finally, High Commander Zethrak spoke. You're telling us that a species that achieved spaceflight less than 3 centuries ago defeated a Confederation fleet using technology we have no defense against? That's correct, High Commander, Velas confirmed. Our intelligence was fundamentally flawed. The humans are far more advanced than surface observations suggested. More importantly, they're strategically sophisticated. They anticipated our methods and prepared countermeasures. This is unacceptable, another High Commander said. We must mount a larger expedition. Crush this upstart species before they become a larger threat. I advise against that course of action, Velas said, surprising himself with his own words. The humans demonstrated they could have destroyed our entire fleet but chose to let us retreat. They're not seeking expansion or conquest. They're defending their territory. A larger attack would be costly and might not succeed. You're suggesting we accept this humiliation? Zethrax asked. I'm suggesting we learn from it, Velas replied. 14 successful integrations made us arrogant. We assumed the pattern would work forever. The humans proved us wrong. Perhaps some species are better approached as equals rather than subjects. The High Command exchanged glances. The suggestion was revolutionary, even heretical. The entire structure of the Confederation rested on hierarchy and control. But the alternative was an expensive war with an uncertain outcome against an enemy that had already proven surprisingly capable. We'll consider your recommendations, Zethrax said finally. Return to Confederation space. We'll convene a full council to discuss next steps. The channel closed. Velas returned to watching the stars, wondering if he had just witnessed the beginning of something larger than a single failed conquest. Perhaps humanity's resistance would force the Confederation to reconsider its entire approach to new species. Or perhaps it would just inspire greater brutality in response. Only time would tell. On Earth, the aftermath of the battle brought celebration mixed with sobering realization. Humanity had survived first contact with hostile aliens, but the victory raised difficult questions. Were all alien species this predatory? How many others existed out there who might view Earth as a target? Could humanity truly defend itself against multiple threats? Ambassador Sarah Chen addressed these concerns during a press conference 3 days after the battle. She stood at the podium in the UN building, facing cameras that broadcast to billions of viewers worldwide. The Zeltharan Confederation came to Earth claiming peaceful intentions. She began. What they actually planned was conquest. Thanks to our military's vigilance and the courage of our Shadow Fleet crews, we defeated that plan. But we must be clear about what this means for humanity's future. She paused, gathering her thoughts. We are no longer alone in the universe. We know now that alien civilizations exist, and not all of them are friendly. This means we must remain vigilant. We must continue developing our defensive capabilities, but we must also remain open to genuine peaceful contact. Not every species will be like the Zeltharans. We cannot let fear close us off from potential allies. Questions erupted from the assembled journalists. Sarah answered patiently, explaining what was known about the Confederation and its history of conquest. She praised Captain Webb and the Shadow Fleet crews. She acknowledged the difficult balance between hope and caution that humanity now had to maintain. Admiral Catherine Stone watched the press conference from her office and felt a measure of satisfaction. The crisis had been handled well, all things considered. Earth's defense posture had proven adequate, though barely. Now the real work began, expanding and improving those defenses for whatever came next. Admiral, her aide interrupted. Captain Webb is requesting permission to speak with you via secure channel. Put him through, Stone ordered. Webb's face appeared on the screen, looking tired but composed. Admiral, the Shadow Fleet is requesting orders. Do we maintain our current deployment or stand down? Stone considered carefully. Maintain deployment for now. I want continuous monitoring of the edge of the solar system. If the Zeltharans decide to return with reinforcements, I want advance warning. Understood, Webb replied. Permission to speak freely? Granted. What we did out there, ma'am, it was necessary. But it's going to change everything. Every species in the Confederation now knows Earth exists and that we can defend ourselves. That makes us a curiosity. Maybe even a target. We need to be ready for what comes next. I know, Stone agreed. I'm already working with the government on emergency defense appropriations. We're going to expand the Shadow Fleet, develop new weapons, build better sensors, but it's going to take time, and we don't know how much time we have. Then we better get started, Webb said with a slight smile. The Retribution and her crew are ready for whatever comes. The channel closed. Stone turned to stare out her window at the sky. wondering what other ships might be out there watching and waiting. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. There would be consequences, both good and bad. Across the solar system, the Shadow Fleet maintained their vigil. The Retribution held position beyond Neptune, her sensors sweeping the darkness for any sign of returning threats. Captain Webb walked his ship during quiet hours, checking on crew members and systems, making sure everything was ready. In engineering, Lieutenant Torres analyzed the battle data, looking for lessons learned and areas for improvement. The railguns had performed better than expected, but ammunition consumption was high. They would need better manufacturing capacity to sustain prolonged combat. On the bridge, Commander Mills updated tactical protocols based on their experience fighting the Zeltharans. The aliens had been sophisticated opponents despite their defeat. Future enemies might be even more capable. Earth needed to be ready. In her quarters, Sarah Chen wrote a detailed report of everything she had learned about the Zeltharans during her weeks of interaction with them. Cultural information, technological capabilities, political structure, all of it might be valuable if humanity encountered the Confederation again. She also wrote personal notes about Archon Velis, trying to understand the mindset of a species that conquered others so casually. The work was exhausting, but necessary. First contact had not gone as humanity hoped, but it had gone better than it could have. Earth remained free. The Zeltharans had been defeated. Those were victories worth celebrating, even as everyone prepared for future challenges. 3 months later, a different kind of signal arrived from deep space. This one didn't come from Confederation space. It originated from a completely different direction, carrying different encryption patterns and different message structures. When decoded, it contained a simple message in multiple languages. We heard what happened with the Zeltharans. We are the Kethran Union, a coalition of species who resist Confederation expansion. We would like to talk. Genuinely talk with no deception. We understand if you don't trust easily anymore. We wouldn't either. But perhaps we can help each other. The enemy of our enemy might not always be our friend, but at least we can start with honest conversation. Admiral Stone read the message 3 times before calling an emergency meeting of Earth's Security Council. The debate was intense. Some argued for ignoring the message completely, unwilling to risk another deception. Others saw potential for genuine alliances. Sarah Chen argued passionately for at least responding, carefully but honestly. We can't let the Zeltharans' betrayal make us paranoid about all alien contact, she said. Yes, we need to be cautious. Yes, we need to verify everything. But isolation isn't safety. It's just slow death. We need allies if we're going to survive in a galaxy that apparently contains predatory civilizations. The Council voted to respond. The message was carefully crafted to be friendly but cautious, expressing willingness to talk while making clear that Earth would not tolerate another attempt.